Listen, the 1970s didn't just give us soul classics. It gave us songs that started arguments. I'm talking bedroom records that got banned, affair anthems that shocked church folks, and protest joints that made radio stations nervous. Some of these tracks were called too sexy, some were called too political, and a few were basically too honest for their time. So in this video, we're counting down 15 controversial R&B and soul songs from the 1970s you need to hear again. And for each one, I'll tell you what the song was really saying, why it caused noise back then, and why it still hits different today. Stay with me, because when we get to the top 5, the controversy isn't subtle, it's history-changing. The first time I heard Pillow Talk, it didn't feel like a regular song. It felt like I walked into a room I wasn't invited into. That's the power of it. Sylvia wasn't just singing, she was confessing. And not in that dramatic, crying way. In that quiet, after-hours way. Like the lights are low. Like the world outside the window is asleep. Like it's just you, your thoughts, and the truth you don't say in the daytime. Pillow Talk came out in 1973, and what it did was simple. It brought bedroom intimacy into soul music without hiding it behind big poetry. It was direct, it was warm, it was human. The groove didn't rush. It didn't try to be radio-friendly in the cute way. It just slid. And that's exactly why it became controversial. Because in the early 70s, a lot of folks still wanted romance on the radio to sound proper.
Tell me wrong from right, I'll ask to borrow them handsome.
Even if everybody was living wild in real life, they wanted the music to at least pretend. Sylvia didn't pretend. Her voice had that breathy honesty where you could almost hear the smile in between the words. And when that record hit the airwaves, you'd see people react in real time. Because once you open that door, it doesn't close. Now, decades later, Pillow Talk still sounds bold. Not because it's graphic, but because it's fearless. It's a woman claiming adult desire in a calm voice, like it's normal, like it's allowed. And that, back then, was the controversy.
If this song just hits you in that quiet place, don't let this moment be a one-time thing. Subscribe to Demo. We're building a home for real R&B and soul. The kind that heals, the kind that tells the truth. Hit subscribe and come back whenever you need a song that understands you.
Now this one right here, this is where the room used to get awkward. Jungle Fever is not a typical R&B soul record in the way most people think of it. It's more like a groove experiment that ended up getting pulled into R&B culture because DJs and dancers grabbed it. But the controversy? Oh, the controversy was loud. Because the track had something you almost never heard on the radio back then. Heavy breathing and moaning. Not sexy singing, not romantic lyrics, actual moaning. And that alone was enough to make people lose their minds. I remember the first time it came on somewhere public, it felt like somebody slipped a grown-up movie scene into the middle of the party. Like, hold on, who put this on? Who approved this? People would laugh, because laughter is what you do when you're uncomfortable and curious at the same time. Some folks would start dancing anyway. Some would look around like they were checking who was watching them react.
And that's why it became one of those forbidden fruit records. The more it was whispered about, the more people wanted to hear it. The more it got banned or avoided, the more it became legendary. Even today, when you hear it, you can understand instantly why it caused trouble. It's not subtle. It's not shy. It doesn't care if you're ready. It just plays. And it dares you to act like you're not hearing what you're hearing.
Means being without you, I'd rather live alone doing life.
This song right here, this was controversy dressed in church clothes, because it sounded like classic soul, beautiful melody, smooth arrangement, that heartbreak voice. The kind of record you could play in the car and everybody would nod their head. Then you listen. to what he's actually saying, and it hits you like cold water. He's basically confessing to an affair.
My side, I don't care what your people say.
And not in a, I'm sorry I messed up way. More like, I know it's wrong, but I can't stop. That's why this record became a lightning rod. In 1972, a lot of songs hinted at cheating. They'd use code words. My secret love. You're my special one. Stuff like that. Luther Ingram said it straight. He took the moral argument, the whole right versus wrong conversation, and flipped it.
And am I wrong for trying to hold on to the best?
He made the affair sound like destiny, like love itself was the judge, like society's rules didn't matter. And the wild part is, the song doesn't try to resolve the conflict, it sits in it. That's why it lasts. Because controversy isn't always about shock. Sometimes controversy is about honesty. Sometimes it's one man admitting he's in too deep, and the whole world recognizing that feeling, whether they approve of it or not.
We both know that it's wrong.
If Luther Ingram's record was confession, Me and Mrs. Jones was elegance. And that's why it hit so hard, because this wasn't some raw, dirty-sounding track. This was polished. This was Philly soul at its finest. Smooth, classy, expensive. Like a suit that fits perfect. Like candlelight on a clean tablecloth. And the story? It's an affair. But the way Billy Paul sang it, he didn't make it sound like scandal.
Holding hands, making all kinds of plans.
He made it sound like a romance that just happened to be wrong. That alone was controversial, because in a lot of communities, cheating wasn't just a private issue. It was personal shame. It was family drama. It was fights, tears, and people choosing sides. But also why so many people loved it. Because it was honest about the type of relationship people pretend doesn't exist until it touches their own life.
But it's much too strong to let it.
And if you really want to understand the 1970s, understand this. The decade was full of beautiful music telling ugly truths. That was the shift. That was the tension. Me and Mrs. Jones is controversial because it's too smooth to ignore and too real to feel comfortable.
Are you ready? Yeah! Are you fucking ready? Yes!
Now let me tell you something about hearing Betty Davis back then. It felt like somebody let a wild spirit loose in the middle of polite society. Betty Davis didn't come in asking for permission. She didn't come in trying to be acceptable. She didn't come in trying to be everybody's sweetheart. She came in like a grown woman with her own mind, her own desires, and a voice that sounded like it had sandpaper and fire in it. If I'm in luck, I might get picked up is one of those records where the controversy starts the second it begins, because the energy is not nice, it's bold, it's hungry, it's confident.
Moving it. This is my night out.
And in 1973, that kind of female confidence, especially around sexuality, was still treated like a threat. Men could sing about wanting somebody, men could chase, men could brag. But when a woman did it without shame, that was too much. Billy Paul made cheating sound elegant. Betty Davis made female desire sound fearless. And that's why this group matters. Because once the 70s started letting these truths onto the air, soul music changed. The rules changed. The honesty level changed. The heat changed. And if you think the controversy ends here, no. Because the next group doesn't just push the line, it stomps on it.
Your lady mama lied.
The first time Lady Marmalade hit the air, it felt like the whole room turned its head. Not because the beat was strange. The groove was actually friendly, danceable, catchy. The hook got stuck in your head instantly, but it was that line, that French line. Even people who didn't speak French could tell it meant something grown. And in the 1970s, that was enough to set off alarms. I remember how the song traveled through people like a secret. Somebody would say, "Do you know what they're saying?" And if you didn't, they'd lean in like they were about to tell you a scandal. And if you did know, you'd smile like you were part of a private club. LaBelle wasn't just a group. They were a whole statement. Their style, their energy, their boldness, it wasn't polite. It wasn't trying to be nice girls. It was fearless. Futuristic, loud in a way that felt like freedom. And Lady Marmalade fit that image perfectly. It was a story song, but it was also a vibe. It was spicy without being dirty on the surface. It was playful, but the world heard danger in it. Some radio stations played it without thinking too hard. Others hesitated. Some played it but kept it moving like they didn't want to invite complaints.
Made the savage beast inside roar until it cried.
Because the truth is, the controversy wasn't just the meaning. It was the fact that a black female group was owning that kind of grown sensuality in public and doing it with confidence, not shame. And that's what made people uncomfortable. Not just what they're saying, but how proud they sounded saying it. Lady Marmalade didn't ask for approval. It smiled and kept walking.
Do it to me again and again. You put me in such an awful spin in a spin.
Now this one? This was a cultural moment. I'm not exaggerating. When Love to Love You Baby landed, it wasn't just a sexy song. It sounded like the radio itself had crossed into forbidden territory. Because Donna Summer didn't just sing about love, she performed it. The record had moans and a long, drawn-out sensual energy that felt like it kept going, and going, and going. And that length mattered too, because it made it feel less like a quick pop song and more like a full scene. And that's why the backlash hit so hard. Now, let's be clear. Donna Summer could sing. People sometimes forget that because the controversy becomes the headline. But she had control, tone, and presence. The song's production was hypnotic. It wasn't sloppy. It wasn't cheap. It was crafted. And that made it even more dangerous. Because when something is scandalous and high quality, you can't dismiss it as trash. You have to deal with it. Love to Love You Baby forced the culture to admit something it didn't want to say out loud. People want sensuality in music, and they're going to chase it, no matter how many rules you put around it. Then you get a different kind of controversy. One that doesn't happen in the bedroom, but in the streets, in the headlines, and inside people's opinions. Fight the Power hit in 1975 with a message that felt like a raised fist. And the wild thing is, the Isley Brothers weren't new rebels. They were already legends. They had romance records, groove records, hits that made families dance. So when they came out with Fight the Power, it felt like your favorite uncle stepped up and said, "Nah, we're not doing quiet today." The controversy here was the attitude, because the song wasn't politely asking for change. It was challenging power. It was calling out the system and naming the pressure people felt every day. And in that era, being openly political could get your record blocked, your message twisted, or your career punished. I remember the feeling around political songs back then. Some people loved them because they felt seen. Others hated them because they felt accused. And radio stations? Some were scared. They didn't want trouble. They didn't want phone calls. They didn't want sponsors upset. So what happened? Censorship, editing, carefulness. But the people still got the message, because you can cut a word, but you can't cut a feeling. And the feeling in Fight the Power was clear. We're tired of being told to stay in our place. This wasn't safe soul. This was soul with teeth. And that's why it mattered. Because it proved that controversy isn't only about sex. Controversy is also about truth, especially when truth threatens comfort. When Freddie's Dead came out, it didn't feel like entertainment. It felt like a report. Like Curtis Mayfield was standing on the corner telling you what he's seen. And that's why it got complicated. because Superfly and the whole blaxploitation era created big debates. Some people said these films and songs showed real struggle and real street life. Others said they glamorized crime and drugs, and families were split on it. Communities were split on it. Freddie's Dead sits right in the middle of that tension. The song tells you about somebody who gets caught in the system, caught in drugs, caught in survival, and it ends with death. There's no happy ending, no clean lesson, just the reality that the streets can chew people up. I remember how that record felt on the radio, heavy, like it lowered the lights. But at the same time, the song became part of a soundtrack that people danced to, quoted, and turned into culture. And that made it even more complicated. Because when you put pain into a groove, people will move to it. That doesn't mean they don't respect the message. It means the message is living inside the music now. That's what Curtis did. He made social commentary that could travel. And anytime a message travels, somebody's going to try to stop it. By 1978, the 70s were getting darker, funkier, and more open about things people used to hide. And Mary Jane is a perfect example of that. On the surface, it sounds like a love song. Smooth, addictive, like he's singing about a woman he can't resist. But everybody knew what it was really about. It was about marijuana. And Rick James wasn't subtle. He wasn't trying to fool the world. He was winking at you the whole time. Like, come on, you know what I mean. That's what made it controversial. It turned a taboo into something stylish. It made a drug reference sound romantic and mainstream. And in the late 70s, that was still a serious line to cross. People didn't want kids singing along to a song that was basically praising weed. Radio stations had to decide. Is this too much? Is this promoting something illegal? Is this going to bring heat? But funk culture was already pushing limits. Rick James was the kind of artist who represented excess. Big personality, big sound, big confidence. He wasn't here to be acceptable. Donna Summer tested what radio could even allow. The Isley Brothers brought revolution into the groove. Curtis Mayfield made street tragedy into poetry. Rick James made a taboo feel like a hit you couldn't stop humming. That's why this group hits different. These songs didn't just cause talk, they forced decisions. Do we play it or ban it? Do we dance or protest? Do we act shocked or admit we love it? And when you get to the next group, 5 to 1, that's where the controversy gets even bigger. Because now it's not just about what's too grown, it's about what changed culture permanently. When Ring My Bell dropped, it had that kind of groove that didn't ask your permission. It didn't kick the door down, it didn't scream, it didn't come in rough. It came in smooth, almost innocent at first. A clean, bouncy disco soul rhythm, a light vocal, a hook that felt like sunshine. But the reason it became controversial is simple. Everybody knew it wasn't really about a bell. That's the thing about late 70s R&B and disco. People got very smart with code. They figured out how to say grown things in a way that could pass through the radio gate. And Ring My Bell is one of the best examples of that. You'd hear it at parties, at family gatherings, in cars with the windows down. And the funny part is, it would be playing around kids, and adults would act like it was harmless. But at the same time, that was the genius of it. It proved that sensuality didn't always need graphic words. Sometimes it's the tone, the rhythm, the way the hook sits on the beat, the way the singer delivers the line like they know you know. I remember Ring My Bell being one of those songs where the room might be dancing, but there's also that quiet tension underneath. Like everybody knows the double meaning, and everybody is pretending they don't. That's a different kind of controversy, not shock, but code. And if you grew up in that era, you know the code was part of the fun. and part of the fight.
'Cause I never see you anymore.
Now this is where the temperature really rises, because Prince wasn't just making songs. Prince was creating a whole new kind of pop star energy, one that made older people nervous and made younger people feel like they were hearing the future. I Wanna Be Your Lover came out in 1979, and it sounded like funk, but it also sounded like something else, something slicker, more daring, more playful.
Your lover. I wanna be the only one that makes you.
Like it was flirting with you through the speakers. And the controversy came from the way Prince carried himself, especially in the voice. He didn't sound like a traditional tough male singer. He wasn't trying to prove he was hard. He sounded soft and bold at the same time. He sounded like he didn't care about old rules of masculinity. That alone was enough to stir conversation.
I wanna be your mother and your sister too.
But then you add the lyrics. Direct desire, no shame, no I'll wait for marriage, no polite courtship. Just a young man basically saying, I want you, let's be real about it. That's what Prince did. He made desire sound fun instead of sinful. He made it stylish instead of shameful. And whether you loved him or feared him, you couldn't ignore him.
Like a child. And they say I'm so shy. Yeah.
I Wanna Be Your Lover feels like the moment the door opens into the 1980s, into a pop world where artists would be more visual, more provocative, more personal, more fearless. Prince didn't just push the line, he redrew it.
Interruptions. The revolution will not show you pictures of Nixon blowing a bugle and leading a charge by John.
Now we shift into a different kind of controversy, the kind that doesn't live in romance. This is the kind that lives in politics, media, and power. The first time I heard, "The revolution will not be televised," I remember thinking, this doesn't sound like a normal song. It sounded like somebody grabbing you by the collar and saying, wake up. It wasn't built for dancing, it was built for thinking.
The revolution will not get rid of the nub. The revolution will not make you look 5 pounds thinner because
Gil Scott-Heron was speaking, not singing in the traditional way. And his words hit like headlines, like protest signs, like a lecture from somebody who's tired of watching people get distracted. And the controversy came from the message. He was calling out the media, calling out consumer culture, calling out the way people are trained to watch instead of act.
down brothers on the instant replay. There will be no pictures of Whitney Young being run out of Harlem on a rail with a brand new process.
And when a record makes people feel exposed, they don't always respond with applause. Sometimes they respond with anger. But Gil's piece became iconic because it captured a feeling that many people had, that real change can't be packaged like a TV show, that liberation doesn't come with a commercial break. That's why it's controversial. It didn't ask you to enjoy it. It asked you to look at yourself. If "The Revolution Will Not Be Televised" was a sharp lecture, "War" was a shout, a straight-up shout. The first time you heard Edwin Starr belt, "War, what is it good for?" you didn't need a dictionary. You didn't need a history lesson. You understood the emotion instantly, and that's exactly why it became controversial.
What is it good for? Absolutely nothing. Listen to me.
Because in 1970, the world was tense. The Vietnam War was still a major reality. Families were losing people. People were protesting. People were fighting in the streets and in the courts and in their own living rooms. And here comes a record that doesn't soften anything. It's not, "Maybe war is complicated." It's not, "Let's consider both sides." It's a punch to the stomach. War is destructive, and we're tired. That kind of message, in that time, could be seen as unpatriotic by some listeners. Some people felt like criticizing war meant criticizing soldiers. Others felt like it was necessary truth. Others felt like it was dangerous. I remember the arguments. They weren't polite debates. They were emotional, because war wasn't theory. It was real. It was personal. It was on the news. It was in families. So War became one of those songs where your opinion about it told people something about you. If you loved it, some folks assumed you were radical. If you hated it, some folks assumed you were blind. If you played it loud, you were making a statement. That's the power of protest music when it really works. It doesn't just entertain, it forces you to take a position.
When the sun goes to fight and lose their life, I said, war!
And Edwin Starr's voice, raw, urgent, almost desperate, made it feel like a man yelling on behalf of the people who didn't have a microphone. That was controversial then, and it still hits now because the question doesn't expire.
If this song just hit you in that quiet place, don't let this moment be a one-time thing. Subscribe to Demo. We're building a home for real R&B and soul, the kind that heals, the kind that tells the truth. Hit subscribe and come back whenever you need a song that understands you.
For only love can conquer you.
And then there's Marvin. Let me tell you what it felt like when Marvin Gaye changed the rules. Before What's Going On, Marvin was already a star. Smooth voice, romantic hits, classic Motown shine. The kind of artist everybody could agree on. Then this record came. And it didn't sound like the Marvin people expected. It sounded like pain. It sounded like confusion.
Punish me with brutality.
It sounded like a man looking around at the world and saying, "Are y'all seeing this?" What's Going On wasn't just one message. It was many messages at once. War, poverty, police tension, environmental worry, community struggle, spiritual searching. Because the song doesn't force you into a corner. It invites you into a conversation. It says, look at the world, look at the people, look at the pain. What are we doing to each other? And in 1971, that was radical, especially from an artist with Marvin's mainstream reputation. This wasn't underground protest. This was a superstar saying it out loud. And it proved something important. Soul music could be beautiful and serious at the same time. It could be smooth and still hit you like truth.
Things we're wrong, they do. But who are they to judge?
So when you look back at this whole countdown, especially this top 5, here's what you realize. The controversy wasn't the point. The point was the courage. Anita Ward showed how coded sensuality could slip into the mainstream. Prince showed how a new kind of sexual confidence could rewrite pop. Gil Scott-Heron showed how words could challenge the media machine.
You know we've got to find a way to.
Edwin Starr showed how a hook could become a protest chant. Marvin Gaye showed how a love song legend could become the voice of a hurting generation. And that's why you need to hear these again, not just because they're classics, but because they remind you of a time when music didn't only try to be liked, it tried to be real. The journey doesn't end here. R&B soul lovers, watch this next.